Morning. How's your tuna?
Who's that character, the famous tuna?
Charlie Tuna.
Charlie the tuna.
Charlie Tuna.
I wonder if that's kosher.
That was Chicken of the Sea.
Chicken.
That was his brand, Chicken of the Sea.
Chicken of the Sea.
A friend of mine once, it's kind of traditional. He keeps kosher, but so he's at a restaurant. So he said one day he went, I think Junior's restaurant, somewhere in Westwood, some deli, and he ordered a tuna sandwich. And his other party ordered a chicken sandwich. And when they came, he was so nervous that he ate the chicken sandwich. He wasn't sure. So halfway through, he asked the waitress, which is tuna and which is chicken? She said, "Oh, I got you both chicken sandwiches."
Boy. Oh, boy.
Because it looks the same.
Yeah, it looks the same, right? I know.
Same.
I mean, that's true. It's not, but I guess if you're gonna be machmer, you don't eat anything. You just drink water.
Yeah. Well, supposedly this argument had been going on for years in the OU.
Yeah.
It's an old story, but you got to be careful with so many things. So it's like nuts.
When I was a youngster, you ate everything. If it didn't, you look at the ingredients. If it didn't have,
you read the ingredients, but I mean, someone pointed out to me that, I mean, when I was manufacturing my products, that you don't. Let's say that it's something called sorbitol, which is common in toothpaste, but you don't know where the sorbitol came from. Right. So you have to have hashgacha on each individual ingredient as well. So we had big bags of sorbitol and xylitol, all with hechshers, and it all comes from China. The raw materials, many come from China. So you have these mashgichim out in the middle of no place in China, at these factories. But you have to, because, everyone tends to do the cheapest thing possible. So they're mixing crap with it.
That's true. The mashgichim go to all these foreign places and they supervise. It's not even the fight. It's just the products that go into
right.
it.
The raw materials.
All the additives have got to be kosher.
And now there's more and more, like the kosher gelatin. I think it comes from fish now. It's very complicated.
Does your product have a hechsher on it?
Yeah, we have KSA from Lubavitch. Yeah, initially they were very easy to work with. I once had OU on my mints. I had OU. They were a little, they made a bigger deal out of. They made it more complicated. That's what I meant. More complicated.
Wow.
But they really check. We had one issue that the line was making some product, and the mashgiach wanted to make sure when they cleaned out the tank, it was done properly, because even though the ingredients could be, who knows what the previous product
before
was.
Right.
Yeah.
You do it outside factories, or you have your own factories?
No, I have outside contractors.
Uh-huh.
So the main one I used was in Chino.
Does the company that bought you, do they have their own productions?
They have their own, but not enough. They have one facility in Montreal, but they have a toothpaste manufacturing facility of all places in Lakewood, Lakewood, New Jersey. So I said, wow. I've heard of it.
Wow, that's good.
I knew who the mashgiach is there in Lakewood.
So you're gonna be the PR man now, huh? You're gonna be the PR man, huh?
Yeah.
Did they tell you should grow your beard longer now, or did they make that?
They also make Trojan condoms, so maybe they want me to be PR man for that too.
They have a lot of products they make?
Yeah. I think that basically they realize that you're much too big for that kind of stuff, Harold.
No, they own a lot of companies. They own Zycam for colds. They own water.
Zycam is a very good product.
Yeah, they bought it last year. Yeah, it's a good product. The previous ownership messed it up big time. They got involved in lawsuits and stuff like that. So, how are you, Walter?
I'm great, thanks, Harold. How are you?
Good. Were your Shabbos plans?
Shabbos plans is to stay out of the fog.
It's crazy out there. Wow.
Yeah, hold on a second. Somebody at my door. 1 second.
Was there any update on the? Let me get my phone.
You go out this morning, you saw the fog, huh?
Terrible, yeah. It's
Gotta be so careful.
It's a very, very damp fog.
Yeah.
Where's our fearless leader? No.
Yeah, there's no notice.
I don't understand where Ernie is.
Yeah, let me send him a text.
I'll call him anyway.
I'll call him. Yeah, give him a call.
Time is short on a Friday.
You're right.
I'm turning on the computer right now.
Okay, come on, it's late date.
I heard that.
I don't know how long it takes to turn on a computer, Harold. But
It's an Atari 200. That's why.
yeah. Yes, so.
Commodore. It's a Commodore.
Blackberry, what do they call Blackberry, huh?
Yeah, they finally,
Dissolved it, I
finished.
think, yeah. They should have finished him with Obama too. That was his main,
Right.
yeah,
that was his.
yeah, means of communication, yeah, Blackberry.
BlackBerry was a good device.
Yes. Very reliable.
Mm.
Nini Ernie, where are you? Oh,
Morning, everybody.
hey, good morning.
Afternoon.
We're starting a new Perek. Perek Revi B'nai Ayir, Kav Chet. B'nai Ayir Shemach Rechov Shalir. You have a city, and there's like a central plaza. And the central plaza is used for the tzibur. And there might be some things that are kadosh involved in the rechava. For example, Rashi says during Tainus, they would gather in this plaza for tefillah and for mamodos. This Mishnah is going to describe the principle of Mailin B'Kodesh V'lo Meridin. So if the city decided to sell that plaza, Loichim B'dom of Beis HaKnesses, with the proceeds, you can buy a shul, because a shul has a higher level of kedusha than that outside plaza. If you sell the Beis HaKnesses, Loichin Teva, you can buy with those, you can't buy anything less kadosh with it. So you could buy an Aron Kodesh, for example. If you're installing an Aron Kodesh in a new shul, you can use the proceeds that you had when you sold the shul. Let's say you sell an Aron Kodesh, Teva, Loichim Mitpachos. You can buy wrappings that you would put other Kisrei HaKodesh in. And then if you sell the wrappings with Pachos, Yikus Sforim, you can buy like Tanachs, Nevi'im Uksuvim, says Rashi. If you sell Sforim, Loichin Torah, you can buy a Sefer Torah with that. Now, Avale Machru Torah, if you sell a Sefer Torah, Lo Yikus Sforim, you can't go lower. It's Malam B'Kodesh V'lo Meridin. You'd have to buy another Sefer Torah. You wouldn't be able to buy Sforim with it. And if you sold Sforim, Lo Yichum Mitpachos, you wouldn't be able to buy the wrappings of those Sforim. And if you sold them Mitpachos, Lo Yichum Teva, you wouldn't be able to buy an Aron Kodesh if you sold them Mitpachos, because the Teva has a higher level of Kedusha. If you sold a Teva, Lo Yichum Beis HaKnesses, because the Aron Kodesh has a higher level of Kedusha than the Shul. And if you sold a Beis HaKnesses, Lo Yichum Sarachov, you can't buy the plaza with the proceeds of a shul. And any leftover money, when you sell these things, you also can't. The moiser has the same level as the ikr corpus. So, B'nai Yishamach Rechava Shel Ir, Amrav Baruch Hanan Rav Yechon, Zuti ve'Rav Menachem Bar Yosi Stumasa. These are the words of Rav Menachem. Avachachamim Oimrim, Harachav Ein Bo Mishum Kedusha. If you sell a rechav, you can do whatever you want with it. Rabbi Nachman Bar Yossi, my time, why does Rabbi Nachman say it has kedusha? Since, like Rashi said in the Mishnah, since the people daven there, sometimes it's got kedusha. But v'Rabbanan, they say there's no kedusha. That's a huak kroibam. That's just it happens to happen. It doesn't happen b'kvius. When you use something temporarily, it doesn't establish it that it has a level of kedusha. Then the Mishnah says, Beis HaKnesses Loichin Teva. If you sell a shul, you can buy the Aron HaKodesh with it. Amar Shmuel bar Nachmani Rav Yechon, Lo Yishanu el Beis HaKnesses Shel Kvorim. In a little village, the shul could be sold. Aval Beis HaKnesset shel Krochim, but a shul of a big city. Kivin de Ma'alma Asule, since other people that are visiting the city that have nothing to do with the city use the shul, lo matzum mizabne lei. You can't even sell such an item. Dahavele de Rabim. It isn't owned personally either by the village itself or by a person. It's not owned by the krach. It's owned by the tzibur. The tzibur can't sell it. On Rav Ashi, Haibek Nishta de Mosa Machse, the shul in Mosa Machse, Afal Gav de Me'al Ma'asula, even though it's a big city and people come from all over, not necessarily from the city of Davin there. Kiven da daita didika asu. This shul was Rav Ashi's shul. And Rav Ashi says they come because they know I'm there. Ibo'ina mezavnina lo. I can sell it. L'chura, it's problematic because it's a shul of a krach. So Meisvei, on Rav Yehuda, Ma'aseh Beis HaKnesset shel Tursiim, there was a shul of these people, the Tursiim. These are blacksmiths. It was like the guilds. Like jewelers would have their own shul. Doctors would have their own shul. Every profession davened by themselves. So it was Shai B'Yushalayim, Shemachru l'Rab Eliezer, and they sold it to Rab Eliezer for Asaba called Sarchav, and that became his private shul. V'hahasam de krachim hava. So how could they do it? It belonged to the big city. Yerushalayim is a big city, and we had a principle that the Gemara elucidated that a shul in a big city can't sell. So the Gemara answers, "Ahi beknishta zutehave." It was a small shul, which was built by these blacksmiths, and it was owned by them, and therefore they could sell it even though it was in a big city. Meisvei, it says, "Beveis eretz achuzaschem," that this has to do with the laws of redeeming a house. And it says if you buy a house in the land of your achuzah, it has the din of tumas nagoyim in a bayis hamenuga. And it says achuzaschem etami b'nagoyim. It's a home that is owned individually by an individual person that can be metami b'nagoyim. But ein Yerushalayim metami b'nagoyim. But Yerushalayim, you can't, a private person can't own property in Yerushalayim. It wasn't distributed to the shevet, like to a specific shevet, which could then, a member of that shevet could establish ownership. It was given to Klal Yisrael as a whole. And therefore, it's not considered achuzaschem. And therefore, the tumas nagoyim don't apply in Yerushalayim. He argued and said that homes in Yerushalayim can be owned privately. It's just the Makom HaMikdash has this thing of it belongs to Klal Yisrael, that there's no din of Tumas Nagoyim. It's only the Beis HaMikdash. Bate Knesios, Bate Midrashos, Mitamim. But shuls and Bate Medrash in Yerushalayim are Mitamim. Now, Amai, Hade Krachim Avu. Yerushalayim is certainly a krach, it's a big city. So we just said you can't sell it in a big city. I mean, it's not a Makom Mikdash, Makom Mekudash, a holy place, not just the Harabayis, but also shuls and Bate Midrashos would not have a din of Bayis HaMenuga. So what's this machloikes in the Baraisa we just learned between the Tanakam and Rabbi Yehuda? B'may kamiflagi. Tanakam asar lo nischaka Yerushalayim l'shvatim. The Tanakama holds that Bichlai Yerushalayim was not given over to any Shevet. It was given over to Klal Yisrael as its Tzibur. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, Yerushalayim was given over to Shvatim. We'll see which Shvatim. And therefore, they could establish private ownership in those houses, and therefore could fulfill the principle of Beves Eretz Achuzastem. And it could be afflicted with Tum and the Goy. Ubeplukta Dani Tanoi. And they argue in the same machlekes as the next Tanoi, the Tanya. Me'aya b'chalko shel Yehuda harabayis. What belonged to Shevet Yehuda, the harabayis, halashokos v'azoris, the offices in the Azara. U'maya b'chalko shel Binyamin ulam v'heichal u'beis kodshe kadoshim. The antechamber, the heichal itself, and the beis kodshe kodshoshim. U'ritzu isa yotzes b'chalko shel Yehuda v'nechnesu b'chalko shel Binyamin. There was a strip of Yehuda that came into the Azara. Uba Mizbech Banui. And the Mizbech was built on that strip of Yehuda. And Binyamin every day was afflicted because he wanted to swallow that part of the Ritzua of Yehuda where the Mokam Mizbech was. And that's what's meant by the pasuk Shenamar Choyfeif Alav Kol Hayom. He hovers over it all day. And because he was mitzdayer so much, the Kodesh Kadoshim, which is the home of the Shechina, is in the territory of Binyamin. And V'haitan Esover Lo Nizchak Yishol L'Shvatim. The other brisa that said, the other Tana that learned it was not given over to Shvatim, held like the following brisa, the Tanya. Ein maskirin batim b'Yerushalayim. You cannot rent a house in Yerushalayim or pay rent. B'nei she'ein shalayim. You can only be maskir bais if you own it. But the owners of homes in Yerushalayim, they're not the owners because it was nischalka l'shvatim. They couldn't even rent the beds. When people came to Yerushalayim and offered korbanos, the owners gave the hides, the hotel owners or the hosts, where all these people were staying in people's homes, they would sort of forcibly take it because they don't really have bailis over their homes. So it's not really coming to them as payment. So they took it almost like gezel. Abai says that there's a derech eretz, it's manners, that a person who brought a jug that he used for wine, and he maybe had extra wine jugs, or just an empty jug that is used for wine, and the hides of behemoths that he shechted to eat, he would leave that as a matana to the host who hosted him when he was in Yerushalayim.
How did the according to Tanakama, how do they chatchila did they occupy Yerushalayim? The people that build houses, what right did they have to do it? I could come along and say, you can't do that. That belongs to all of us. But they did it. They built up the city, and they had it. So how it wasn't practical to say they didn't own it. Otherwise, it'd never been occupied. If I don't own something, I'm not going to start to build something. How did they do it according to Tanakama?
So it's like even in Israel, right? It's a 99-year lease. They didn't have ownership of. They had to recognize that if you build this house, it's not going to belong to you.
It's a land lease. I think that's not going to getting. I think people live there, but the Rambam Paskan that it's got to do with leprosy. That it can never get leprosy, and the houses they can. Doesn't mean that people can't live there. This doesn't belong to them. It's a land.
Of course, they could live there and they could build their house.
Right.
They had to recognize that they were not the permanent bailim.
The Baalim.
Amar Rava, lo yishanu ela shelo yimachru shiva tuvei ir b'maimed anshei ir. When we said that when you sell a shul, you cannot use the funds to buy certain things, it's only when they're called the Shiva Tuvei Ir. These are the people who are appointed in that city to sort of be in charge of community things. Then if they want to sell the shul and build a bar there, right, to drink beer would be permitted because they have the ability to sell the shul and to be machal of the kedusha away from the status that it was before. Ravina Avaleahu Tila de Beknishta. Ravina there was a certain mound. I guess there was an old shul there. And he wanted to know, could he convert it to a field? Also, Ravashi. Amrle Ma'u Lemizra, can I plant here? Amrle Zil Zivne, go buy it from Yeshiva Tuvei Ir b'Maimed Anshei Ir. Go buy it from the Shiva Tuvei Ir who's run, then you can do whatever you want with it, like we learned. Rami Barava have a Bani Beknishta. Rami was going to build a shul. Hava Knishta Atika. Now there was an old shul that they wanted to destroy. The boiler mystery. They wanted to take the beams and the bricks of the old shul and use it to build a new shul. Yosef become a boiler. They asked Rav Chizah, can you do that? So the Amar Rav Chizah loy lister beknishta the bani beknishta achriti. You're not allowed to destroy an old shul unless you've built a new shul already. So here, could you do it? So the Gemara says, Hasa mishum pshiusa. Over there, when Rav Chizah paskin, you couldn't destroy an old shul before you built a new shul because he was concerned that they would be negligent and they would destroy the old shul, never build a new shul. So ki hai gavna mai. But here, when Rami Barava wanted to do it, are they the same? Is it the same worry? Also, committed Rav Papa, Osrle, Lakamid Ravuna Osrle. No, it's no different. The Shaila came in front of these two Gedolim, and they also answered. It's a general rule that if you're going to want to build a new shul, that's fine, but you can't destroy the old shul first. You got to keep the old shul around until the new shul is built. Amar Rav Hai Beknishta, chiluf of zvuna, like exchanging it with a different building or selling it, so that allows the kedusha to be poka, shari. But ugura umashkuna, but to rent it or to use it as collateral, osir. That's not the same as a transaction, and you'd have a problem with the kedusha. My time b'kedushta koi. In a loaning it or collateralizing it, the shul keeps its kedusha, and you have a problem with it. And livni nami. The bricks of a shul. Chalufinu is even if you sell it or exchange it, shari, that would be permitted. But uzfinu, also to exchange it, is not permitted. Hanamili batikta. That's a shul that had been used already. Aval b'chadita less than, but if it's a new shul, it's never been used. What we just said doesn't apply. When you designate something, does it have halachic significance? So that's a machloikes. So even according to machloikes, that hazmona, designating something, even though it's never been used for that, still has that status. For example, if someone weaves a tachrichin for a mace, so even though it hasn't been used as a tachrichin yet, you've designated it as a tachrichin, that's where the subject comes up, that hazmona milsi. Aval hacha, but in a new shul, ketavul arigdami, it's you have pre-woven garment that you had not designated what it's supposed to be. So there, hazmana is lav milsi, and therefore a shul that was built but hasn't been used yet is similar, and the hazmana won't work to make it a shul to restrict you from selling it. V'lek l'man da'amar matana. No, v'lek l'man da'amar. There's nobody that says that hazmana will be helpful in a case where you built a shul and you haven't used it yet. Now, we talked about selling. We talked about collateralizing. What about matana? When you give a gift, is that a transaction that will remove the kedusha? So pligi baravachav ravina chad osar chad shari. Manda osar b'hai tifka kedushta. What with a matana? You're going to leave the kedusha is going to go. It's not going to go. It's not enough of a transaction. Umanda shari lav dahavale anomine. Listen, you're going to give a gift. The gift is going to give you hana because you gave a gift, and he's going to have hana. If there was no hana, lo havi yosef, he wouldn't give it. So So in that way, that mandamer holds that a matana is like a sale. Each party gets benefit. Tashmishe mitzvah. Things that are used to help you do a mitzvah. After you're through with them, nizrakin, you can throw them away. They don't have permanent kedusha. But tashmishe kedusha, items that are used in order for something that has the status of kadosh, those things nignozim have to be buried. Now, what's examples? Eluain tashmishe mitzvah, sukkah, lulav, shoifar, tzitzis. Those items, after sukkah, you can destroy your sukkah. You can throw away your lulav or a shoifar. And so that's considered tashmishe mitzvah. Items that help you in performing a mitzvah. The Eluain tashmishe kedusha, dluskame sforim. You have a sforim shrunk, right? A chest that you hold sforim in, or bag. Tefillin mezuzahs, right? Tefillin mezuzahs have dvarim shebekdusha inside of them. V'tik shel sefer Torah. The mantle of the sefer Torah, or v'nartik shel tefillin tzusasein. The bag that holds the sefer, holds the tefillin. Amar Rava Mereisha v'mina hay kursoya tashmish to tashmish hu. That the bima in a shul, well, I thought that's just a tashmish of a tashmish. Because you don't put the sefer Torah directly down on the table. There's usually a mappa there. So it's a tashmish to tashmish. And I thought maybe it was permitted to just throw it away. Even the chazina de musfilo sefer Torah, sometimes though we would see that they would put the sefer Torah directly on the table, amina tashmish kedusha hu v'aser. Now I understand that it's also considered a tashmish kedusha, and you cannot just throw it away.
By the way, they say the lulav you can throw away, but esrog, I guess you can't. And otherwise, they would have said esrog. No, we don't throw away the esrog. Is that what?
You can cook it. You can make jam out of it. You don't have to
But
bear
you can't. But you can't throw it away like you could a lulav, right? Otherwise, they would have said.
Elazar, when they talk about lulav, they mean lulav and esrog. So that would otherwise.
Lulav, I think they made jam out of it because it's less of a bizoyon than throwing it away. But I don't think it's considered a mitzvah. It doesn't have to be buried.
Okay.
Amar Rava, Mereisha Avamina Hai Prisa Tashmish to Tashmishu. The Prisha is like the curtain that you hang over an Aron HaKodesh for decoration. And perhaps since like in Yavne, well, not in Yavne, but in some shuls, the curtain is outside of there's doors, and then you have a curtain outside. So you could think that the curtain is just a decoration thing. It's not the real door that's protecting the Sefer Torah, right? You know, in Yavne, the curtain is actually inside. So that's actually the mamish, the tashmish itself. And the wood doors on the outside is what we would call the prisa. But even the chazina da'ifile umanach sifra alai, sometimes they would, I guess, use the curtain and they would actually fold the Sefer Torah inside of it So therefore, it has the status of Tashmish Kedusha Huva Aser. V'amarava tevuta de irpit. You have an Aron Kodesh, but it's old. It's peeling. It's breaking down. So me'avda teva zutrasi shori. So to use it to make a smaller Sefer Torah, you're allowed to. Aval, but kursaya also, but to take that Aron Kodesh that's breaking and to use the wood to make a bima, you're not allowed to, because a bima has less of a kedusha than the Aron. V'amar of a high priest the bala. Again, this the curtain that was used to the paroiches to cover the Aron, and it's worn out. Lemev de prisa lesifri shori, to use it as a bag to protect sifrei kodesh is permitted. That's for Sefer Torah, but lechumashim, which doesn't have for a chumash, not a Sefer Torah, that's aser. These are chests or cabinets that you would put chumashim in. The kamitri de sifri, these are like briefcases, other things that you would put the sfarim in, are tashmish kedushininu, v'nignazim. They're considered tashmish kedusha, and you have to bury them. Pshita, we learned it already. This is not a kovedik thing. It's just to preserve them, to be a shomer of them. Kamash Malon, that makes it a tashmish kedusha. There was a Roman shul, idruna, was open to a certain space. And there was a mace in that open space that the shul was open up into. Kohanim wanted to come and daven there. Now the problem is the fact that the shul is open to where mace is, the Kohanim couldn't enter the shul. Also, they told Rava the problem. Amalu, Dlu Tevusa, there was this big, like a swarm shrunk, or it was an Aron HaKodesh that was very heavy. Osfi, Dahavale Kli'et, and put it in that space that separates the shul and that room. So there'll be a division between where the mace is and the shul. And it's going to be considered a kli'etza suila nachas. Even though with difficulty they moved it, it's so heavy. For example, you have your china closet. So you have kalim that are movable, are metame betumas kli. But your china closet that's not meant to be moved, it's so heavy, it's meant to just be there. Even though it's a kli, it's not makabel tuma. The Rava said that this is so heavy that it falls under the status of a kli'etza sulanachas. So kli'etza sulanachas ain't a makabel tuma, but choitzes b'fnei tuma. Therefore, it's a chatzitza. It's a separation between the tumas mace and the shul. And the Kohanim could now come into the shul. Yeah, but sometimes they carry this aron when there's a sefer Torah in it. And then it's considered that it can be moved empty and full, which would have tumas nagoy, which have tumas. It could be mitkabel tumah. So ihachi lo afshar. And a chanami, he said, if you can move it with a sefer Torah in it, you can't use it as this chatzitza. You have a mantle of a sefer Torah that got worn out. You can actually use it for a garment for a meis mitzvah. The zui gniz asan, and when you bury the meis mitzvah with these old mantlach, that you've gotten rid of them in the way you're supposed to by burying it. Amar of a sefer Torah shabala. You have an old sefer Torah that's torn up. Well, what can you do with it? So you bury it. When a Talmid Chacham is buried, you bury the sefer Torah with the Talmid Chacham. And the kind of Talmid Chacham, he doesn't have to be such a big Talmid Chacham. That means if he's Baki in Mishnayos and Baraisos, That's enough of a Talmid Chacham to be buried with a Sefer Torah. Arav Acha Bar Yaakov uvechli cheres. The Sefer Torah should be put in a kli cheres, an earthenware kli. Shenemar unsatam b'kli cheres l'man yamdu yamim rabim. In Yirmiyahu, there was a whole ma'aseh there where they wrote Sforim and they put them in earthenware jars so that they should stay for a long time. Let's say to switch a shul into a yeshiva, into a beis medrash, shori, because the beis medrash has a higher level of a kedusha than the shul. But mibei rabbanon lebei knishta aser, to take a beis medrash and make it a shul, it's aser because you're being moirid the kedusha. However, Rav Papa mishmei Rava masnei ipcha. Rav Papa, in the name of Rava, they learned just the opposite, that you can take a beis medrash, make it a shul, but you can't take a shul and make it a beis medrash. Okay. So tomorrow we're going to do Navi at 7:00, and then we'll do the Daf Yomi at 8:00. Have a good Shabbos, everybody.
Shabbos.
Shabbos, good Shabbos.
Shabbos.